Hi, everyone. You're watching episode 5 of Honest E, Discussions with Melanie and Kimberly. I am Melanie.
Hi, I'm Kimberly.
Today's question is kind of a tough one. It's something that's come across my desk a few times this week. I want to talk about, Kimberly, the difference between privilege and white privilege.
Okay, so when you say that to me, I say there's no difference.
Okay.
I say there's no difference between privilege and white privilege because there's no black privilege. It doesn't exist. That's the point of the Black Lives Matter movement, because there's no such thing as black privilege. So privilege is white privilege. So they're the same thing.
Okay. So I have a friend who's arguing that she's not privileged because she's, she was one of a bunch of kids and she had hardship growing up, and, she married someone who, they had some kids who were, a couple of them weren't well, and then, one of them didn't make it, and then she and her husband got sick and they had to pay for college, and, just sort of like the typical things that I can say to, like, I'm a single mom, and, and I have to work really hard, and we don't have a lot of money, and, we're not privileged, but yet I also recognize that we very definitely are in a lot of other ways. But so I was trying to explain to her, I'm like, no, I'm not talking about that kind of privilege where, like, you had to work for things. I'm not talking about the, born rich, handed a silver spoon, everybody did everything for you, didn't have to work for anything privilege. I'm talking about, to me, like, the privilege of, and I think I saw this like as a meme somewhere, is that, if I get pulled over by a cop for a speeding violation or whatever, a traffic violation, I'm just sitting there going, oh crap, like, I'm gonna have to pay a bunch of money and I'm gonna be late for where I am. Whereas, and that would be what I would consider white privilege. Whereas, maybe the black person's going, oh wow, I only maybe have a short time left to be on this planet. So that's what I think is the description of, like, white privilege versus the privilege of, like, not having to work and not having any hardship.
So you just gave me an insight. So let me tell you what my insight just was.
Okay.
When amongst white people they're talking, there is a difference between being privileged and not being privileged. That, I guess, is what you understand the difference to be. And that just dawned on me. So she doesn't feel privileged.
Right.
Now watch this. The difference between what you're talking about within that one race is that one had better breaks than the other within the race. The difference between white privilege is, regardless of how unprivileged she thinks she is, if she and I went into the bank to get a loan, she will get the loan based off of the white privilege that exists, and I won't,
right,
because I have no privilege.
Okay.
See how that worked?
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense to me. I mean, that's kind of how I understand it, but I think that there's a lot of sort of misunderstanding about having, like, what privilege means, because I mean, I could put lots of levels in my life and go, well, we don't have a lot of money, but we've had a lot of experiences, we live in a great neighborhood, but but I was divorced. I mean, so whether or not I say I'm privileged or my kids are privileged, that it's relative to things, to a lot of things, but then if I put it on the perspective of the things that I can do just because I'm white, which would be things that would never cross my mind that I can do just because I'm white. Like, it would never occur to me that that I wouldn't be able to go to the bank and get a loan unless I just had bad credit or something. But that would be,
right. And if I went to the bank with excellent credit, I still might not get it.
Okay.
Depends.
Yeah.
It's almost like a crapshoot. It depends on who the loan generator is.
Yeah.
It depends on if they liked you when you came in. The difference between me and this is funny. Let's say I was going in to get a car, and let's say my credit was 750 as a basic number. right? So I have a 750 score. I go in, I've looked at the thing, I qualify for all the things that you need to have a 750 score to get a 2% APR. I would, as a Black woman, say, before I go to try and get this car, I might need to get dressed up. I might need to carry my credentials with me. Whereas you might go in jeans and a baseball cap, and you know it's your I look a hot mess day. But I thought maybe I have to get dressed up to go into the bank to make myself presentable.
Right.
Regardless of what's on the paper, to make sure that I'm liked enough by the person who's supposed to be handing out what I deserve.
Right. And do you think it has to do with, because I feel like as a woman in general, like that was kind of an issue I had years ago when you bring up buying a car, is that I was haggling with a guy and I couldn't get quite what I wanted. So I brought in a guy and got the help that I needed because I brought a guy with me, because no matter what I did, I wasn't taken seriously because I'm just this little, you know, lady, not
Just
big.
this little old woman. Yeah.
Yeah, just like this little tiny lady who's like, I want to buy this car. And like now I can go in and I've got my mental shit together. And I'm like, hi, I'm buying a car and here's the terms and this is what I'm doing. And now I know how to do it. But 20 years ago or so, I remember going in and I couldn't get what I wanted until I went home and came back with a man. And I was like, all right, do this, So I understand like that sometimes it's at their whim and what we look like
Right.
But do you think that would happen to you every time? I mean, do you think you could just, do you think that would happen to you? Like, I mean, do you think that there's not circumstances where you can just walk in and go, hey, my name is Kimberly, I'm looking for a, Honda Civic and all goes well?
There are some circumstances.
I mean, I guess I'm asking, is it always hard?
Yeah. Because I'm thinking about it like this. My father has A1 credit. On paper, he can get he doesn't even have to go in. He can just order a car off the phone. Okay. You know what I mean? They don't question his credentials on paper. But if he were to show up, it's still a problem.
Okay.
And just like I went somewhere yesterday, and it's so funny to me, every time I tell someone who is helping me at a store or at a bank or at wherever, they ask me, I went to get my car serviced yesterday. So I pull into the service station at the dealership. And so, I have my mask on, so, they can't really hear me. And so they're like, last name. And I was like, Black. I'm sorry, what did you say? I'm like, Black. And can you spell that? It's like, what, you can't spell Black? You just don't want me to be Black and have my name be Black because it threw you off. Like you were thinking Black. And then when I said Black, you're like, it couldn't possibly be. Yeah, it can possibly be. That's my last name.
And then they get uncomfortable because now they have to call you.
Yeah, now you have to say. And then when I looked at her, I was like, you can't spell Black? And then she was like, oh God, now I'm really embarrassed. It's like, good, thanks.
Did you really say that though? Did you really say that?
Oh yeah, I really did. And I also, the other one I say often is, what's your name? And I'm like, Kimberly Black. And they're like, I'm sorry, they'll say, can you spell that? Or they'll say, I'm sorry, I was like, Black as in I am. and I just let it go because I know what you're thinking already.
Okay.
And so you're uncomfortable. I'm comfortable with it. I'm good with that. But they're always like, oh, what? What did you say? Oh my God, I can't believe you said that. It's like, no, because that's really actually my name. Like, yeah, I said it. So yeah, there are certain circumstances where it's not that way, but I can promise you it's that way. So my grandfather told me this story. He died in 2011. So this must have been 2010. We were sitting around talking. And he was like, it's my best memory is we went to Plunkett Furniture. This was in 1975. We went to Plunkett Furniture. And he was like, I was getting some furniture. And I was like, I remember that. And he was like, you remember that? And I was like, yeah, actually, that was like a fun day. If that's your greatest memory, then I get it. I was there. It was fun. Then we bought all this furniture and, whatever. And I remember then in 1975, the salespeople just, first of all, of course, following us around the store, because that's a given. And my grandmother was very, we'll use the word particular. She was very particular about what she purchased. And she was very particular about what she wanted and what she didn't want and what she was going to get and what she wasn't going to get. So they were looking at the furniture, and everything she picked out, she was like, I like it, but I hate the fabric. So I'm going to need this fabric that I see here in this book. And, oh, that's custom order. And she was like, okay, so then order it. That's what I want. I'm getting what I want, and that's what I want. And so we get up to the counter, and, oh, well, this is going to be this and that and this much, and the price. And they kept talking about the price. The price is this and the price is that. And my grandfather's like, yeah, okay, get it. She wants it, get it. If she wants it, I want it. So wrap it up, do whatever it is you have to do. What's the delivery date? And he had credit, he had credit cards, whatever. And they kept giving him the you can't afford it thing. Oh, you can't afford this, or you can't afford that. And my grandfather reached in his pocket and he took $10,000 out in cash and put it on the counter. Was like, there. Now, you take what you need, you give me back what my change is, and get her what she said she wanted. And he was like, you remember that? And I was like, yeah, because they were trying to, come off on you like you couldn't afford the furniture. He's like, yeah. He's like, remember when I went in my pocket? I was like, I do. I remember when you went in your pocket and you pulled cash out. Like, and my grandfather might have been 5'5". I mean, he was a short, little, dark man. And they were just looking at him like, you can't do it. And he was like, it's in my pocket. Like, I walk around like this all the time. And, he was just like, that was his greatest memory, because what happens often between when you're talking about privilege versus not having any, if you're going just to buy some furniture, you got your wife and your daughters and your grandkids there, and you're trying to be, the provider, and someone comes to you and is like, no, you can't even buy furniture. And he was like, I can buy all this furniture and I'm going to get it. And hurry up and get it to me, and don't come to me and say what I can't have when I'm telling you what I can have and what I do want and what I'm going to get. So that kind of thing happens all the time. So when you say, does it always happen? Yeah, it always happens. Even when he puts out, I try and be careful, but I have no filter, so that's going to be a problem. I don't know.
We should have called our show Unfiltered.
Yeah, right. So both of my grandfathers said the same thing, and he was like, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter who you become. It doesn't matter what title you get in this life. One grandfather said, they still call me Colonel Nigger. And my other grandfather, they still call me Dr. Nigger, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. You still have whatever your title is in front of your name, but you're still not good enough. You're still going to be below whatever the lowest of the standard is. You're still below it. So when you have privilege, when you're just standing on a color, you can go in whether you think you're privileged or not and receive a better treatment than someone of color who might even be more privileged, as far as society thinks socioeconomically. You might be more privileged, but you're still not. It doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, I totally see that distinction between privilege and privileged. I'm just thinking of things in my own head of people I know, and it's like, well, yeah, she doesn't have the privilege, but she's more privileged financially than I am, something like that. That is such a great explanation, because it's not even the explanation that I was thinking, and I was trying to explain it, and I feel like I was failing because my point was not being received which is frustrating because I'm trying so hard to, you know, work on this, you know, with you, and just, and I think understanding it better myself makes it easier for me to explain if I were
Yeah,
to
well,
try.
even last week you mentioned something about well, that's just the way it was. That's just normal. And when I was looking back at it, I was thinking to myself, yeah, normal was racist. I mean, that's what normal was. Normal was racist.
Yeah.
So when we hear Trump say "Make America Great Again," it's like, for who? You know,
For who, right? For who?
I
Yeah.
mean, you know, when was it great? You know, and I talked to my son, we were talking about something about time traveling. I think one of his teachers asked him something, and I told him I had a similar experience in school. So third grade, same teacher. You know who you are, third grade Ogden teacher.
Great teacher.
Anyway, I thought I'd throw that in because I'm grown now, I can do it. But yeah, we were talking about Williamsburg, Virginia. And she was like, oh, this is so great. Oh my gosh, it's so great. Don't you want to go back in time to Williamsburg, Virginia? And I'm sitting there like, no. Raise your hand. Go back to Williamsburg, Virginia. So all the hands go up. And I'm just sitting there like, I mean, we have a choice in this, right? So I know I don't want to. I'm not raising my hand because I don't want to.
Yeah.
Kim, why don't you want to go back to Williamsburg, Virginia? I mean, everybody does. And I was like, because I'd be a slave. Like, what do I want to go back to that for?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like fun to me. You guys
Yeah.
go, have a blast. I'm staying right in 19.
And here, yeah. Oh my gosh.
This is bad enough. So I'm
Yeah.
talking to my son, and the teacher was asking him a similar thing. So we're laughing about my story, and we're listening to his. And the teacher was like, well, what time would you want to go back to? And he was like, no time. He's like, I don't even basically want to be here now.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what's to go back to and for what? No, no thanks. No, absolutely not.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. It's
The
funny.
50s, as much as the 50s looked peaceful, you know,
yeah.
and life was simple and all that.
Yeah, for the white people, maybe.
Right, as an era, yeah, you know, the clothes, you know, I like the clothes that the ladies wore in the 50s, and the men with their hats, and everybody looked good, and the big old cars, and, you know, the things that you see, great. But I also don't want to go back to someone being able to kick my door in the middle of the night and drag me out and lynch me. Right. I'm okay with not going to that. That's I'm cool with that.
Right. And it's funny too, because you're saying, like, I guess I did say, and that was kind of what I was explaining to my kids maybe, you know, 6 months or a year ago about, well, I'm not being racist. I'm just saying things because they were okay when I was growing up. And I'm realizing now, I think what we were talking about last time too, is that they weren't okay. They were just acceptable in my world.
Acceptable racism.
And it's funny though, because I would
that's
never.
Why it's systemic. You know, that's why that is why it is systemic.
And the thing is, like, I remember like some jokes that I remember standing in the lunchroom at school telling these jokes, and all I can remember is the punchlines at this point. I don't remember the setup, but they were funny. And I'm like, I was repeating these jokes in mixed company, totally, like, absolutely the most racist jokes possible. And everybody's laughing. And where did I learn these jokes? From my parents. And where did they learn them? From the people who were here at the dinner party. Exactly. Nice, normal people who, if you asked any of them, are you racist? Like, the answer would be, oh gosh, no, we have Black friends, we're not racist. And
then that's the most racist thing you could ever say. I have Black friends.
Right.
It's like, so what?
Right. And there was even something that, and I'm not going to repeat it because it's so horrible, that someone said at one point, and I at this point I'm like, okay, that person said this thing. He called the little boy.
No, say it. I want to hear it. What was it?
No, I can't. I can't because it's really bad. But, and I don't want to say who said it, but somebody, a father of someone I knew said, call the little boy something, and I knew it was wrong. And I know I didn't laugh because I was like, oh, that's like really racist. And he's like, oh, I'm not racist. I'm like, but you just called that little boy that thing. And I'm like, and now I think I would be so like just beside, like head blowing up about this. But at the time I was like, well, that was like really an awful thing to say. And I mean, I was upset about it, but it didn't like, it was just who he was, you know, and it was just sort of accepted that he was just kind of like this. He was, you know, sort of you know, sort of racist, sort of anti-feminist kind of, you know, but it was just who he was.
Hard to bunker.
A little bit, yeah. And so at the time I remember being kind of horrified, but now I think I would get out of the car. You know, I don't think I would. I mean, there's no way I would stand for it now. But then, you know, 25 years ago, even then it wasn't at that point what he said was not acceptable. But it was still acceptable. Does that sort of make sense from my
Yeah.
end?
Well, watch this. I think it was 95-ish. I was working as an assistant buyer at Montgomery Ward, and there was a girl there from Annapolis, Maryland. Her father was in the Navy. And so we had the military thing, you know. I was like, oh yeah, my dad was in the Army. Oh yeah, your dad, you know. So we kind of bonded on that immediately. And we had to do some spirit thing for work. And this is like back before weaves were like popular or whatever, but Montgomery Ward was selling like bundles of hair. So, you know, all these samples would come through to the sample store. So we're getting all this. So we were doing something where we had to dress up like Indians, which first of all was racist in and of itself.
Right.
But I took this hair, because my hair was real short then. I took this hair and I braided my hair and I put this hair on the end of it and I braided it so that I had these 2 long braids hanging down. I'm like, yeah, I got it. I got the look, right? And this girl, Katie something, I don't remember what her last name was. She comes up to me. She's like, oh, wow, you got that hair on. And oh, this is so cool. Like, oh, look, and I put mine on and oh yeah, this is cool. She's like, oh my God, you look just like a pickaninny. And I'm like,
oh my God.
I'm sorry.
Oh
What the hell did you just say to me in 1995?
Wow.
And I went straight to HR because I'm like, I will not be sitting in this building being called this. And she's like, what I say? It's like, you don't even know what you just said. And when I went to HR, they were kind of like, oh, you know, you did. And it's like, you can't tell me that. You can't.
No.
You are not allowed to tell me that at all. But it went through her with no problem, went through HR, not a problem, because, you know, she didn't hit you. But if I had smacked her in the face for saying it, which is what I felt like doing, but I knew I was at work, you know, it's like, don't lose your job, because then you'll have to move back in with your mom, you know, like keep your job so you can keep your apartment. Wow. But yeah, she thought that was an acceptable thing to say. And when you're talking about norms from before, you know, when I first started working, you could smoke in your cubicle at Montgomery Ward. So this is a while ago, right? Yeah. But it was acceptable and nobody did anything. She didn't lose her job. Found out later, not only did she make more than me, we came in both in the management training program. She was making like $15,000 more than I was.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. So it was like, what? How'd that happen? We've got the same amount of education. Right. We've got the same credentials at this point. We're both fresh out of college. But $15,000 difference?
Wow. Wow. Big wow. Yeah.
Big wow.
Big wow. And there it is.
So those are the differences.
Right.
That's privilege.
Yeah. And there it is. There's the privilege right there.
But there's the white privilege right then. Because all the Black kids that got in the management training program started at $20,000. Now, if you weren't Black, you started anywhere from $30,000 and up.
Oh my God.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah, that's a huge difference. And there it is. All right. I mean, I think if you don't get it after that, you don't want to get it.
There's a lot of people who don't, and that's okay. Continue doing the old stuff. But then, you know, there are consequences to your actions. Right. There are karmic consequences, and there are radical consequences. Things are going on right now in the world, not by osmosis. There's reasons behind what's happening, and people are getting pissed. Yeah. And so this is the result of what unchained anger is starting to look like. I mean, last week you said something about being afraid. You said something about when you guys drove through the projects, you kept your head forward and you drove straight. You didn't look to the left or to the right. And I remember similar conversations, but what was funny is when we got to Lincoln Park, and there were plenty of people who lived in Cabrini Green there. And then what happened then? You know, did your focus, did your mentality of who lives there change?
Did mine?
Yeah, mine did. Did yours?
Of who lives in Lincoln Park versus who lives in Cabrini Green?
No. I mean, there was a lot of kids from Lincoln Park who did live in Cabrini
Oh,
Green.
Lincoln Park High School. Oh, I remember a boy in my freshman history class saying he was from Cabrini Green, and I was surprised. It didn't make me afraid of him or anything. I was just surprised that he seemed, well, I didn't like him. He wasn't very nice. And you might remember who he was. I don't know what he's become today, but he seemed like someone who was going to go places. He seemed like someone who was, you know, he had his, you know, himself together, and he was on this, you know, straight and narrow. He seemed like a powerful young man. And I think I was a little surprised to find out that he lived there, but it didn't maybe only change my opinion of him in the way of thinking like, wow, he seems like he's doing well considering what was in the projects. He wasn't what I would have expected of projects kids to look like. I don't know who else lived in the projects, but you know, yeah, I mean, I guess it does kind of change your perception of them a little bit.
But does it,
but
I guess what I'm asking, did it change your perception of the person, or did it change your perception of the projects?
The person.
See, it changed my perception of the projects.
Yeah, the person. Yeah, I see what
Because when I got there, I was thinking like you did, oh my gosh, the project's scary. And then when I met the people who live there, I'm like, you guys aren't scary, so the projects isn't scary.
Yeah,
but where you were forced to live because of white privilege, it changed my opinion of what the projects were.
Okay. Yeah, no, it just changed my opinion of him, and I thought, well, I hope he, you know, makes it out of there, okay? You know, I mean, I don't know what happened to him. I feel like he's one of those people who floats on Facebook and is.
We'll talk offline on who that is.
I know, I'm gonna tell you who it is. I didn't like him. He was not very nice, but that was
besides the point, right?
Beside the point,
right.
yeah.
Well, I mean, look, and there could be somebody who lives there that you just don't care for personally, because that's life, you know. Yeah, there's a lot of people, and then I think you said something too about them selling in the projects they were selling drugs, and I was like, they're also selling drugs on Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah, they are.
You know,
the misconception with, you know, people like, oh, you know, you're sending your kid to public school, there's a lot of drugs there. I'm like, yeah, and there's a lot of drugs in private schools too.
There's like more drugs in the suburbs and in private schools than anywhere else.
And that's why, you know, they're like, oh, this high school versus that school. I'm like, they all do drugs. It's just a matter of which drug they're doing, and, you know, talk to your kids and hope that they make good choices, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think perception and exposure change everything.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Exposure, especially.
Exposure, yeah. Exposure is why some kids don't do well on standardized tests, because they've never been exposed to what they're talking about. If you've never seen a pig, you can't describe it.
Correct.
Yeah. You know, and kids who live in the city usually don't see pigs.
Right.
So it's kind of an unfair question. A lot of the questions, and I'm a teacher, a lot of the questions on the standardized tests are biased, you know, and it's an unfair standard, because everybody hasn't seen that stuff.
Right. What does that mean? What is that? You know, it's not that they're stupid, they just don't know what the thing is.
Right. Exposure changes everything for children. Everything.
Well, today I read a quote, and the first part I can't remember, and the second part was travel, something about traveling, you know, like how to reduce racism is to travel. Like you have to travel around and see different cultures and groups and people, and that will, you know, hopefully change it. That's what diminishes racism. So
yeah,
you know,
yeah, and it keeps you real clear. I mean, I remember driving to Atlanta. I was 16 and I was allowed to, you know, drive. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna, I was driving. My mom and my grandmother were in the car. My little sister was in the car, but I was doing the brunt of the driving. It's like, you have your license. And I was like, great. And I remember we pulled in, we had 2 or 3 cars. It's a convoy going to a wedding or something. And we pulled into this restaurant, diner. It was a diner. We pulled into a diner off the road. Everybody's starving. And we walked in, and when I tell you the needle came off the record when we walked in the room, it was like, no, 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 no. And everybody stared at us, was like, okay, we're just going to back on out. Just like we walked in, and we're not eating here. We got to go eat someplace else because this place looks dangerous for us. We're not coming in here. And we backed right out, got in the car, and just went to another restaurant because there's a lot of places Black people can't go still to this day. And even if you're just pulling off the side of the road, you got to be careful because you go in and it's like, whoops, nah, this is not it. This is not the, I don't want to come into the Klan convention meeting at lunchtime, and not know because I'm just hungry and I saw a sign that said eat here. So, there's still that going on.
And you think that was, I thought until recently that was over, like that's been over for years. And, because in my happy bubble, which I know I live in, we're not like that.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, do whatever, it's like, everyone come on in and let's do what we're doing and have a great time. And,
Well, and then you think about it this way. My son was telling me something they were studying. It was something about the Unabomber. And one of the reasons the Unabomber was able to hide so well, from getting captured, he can go to a Montana or Utah where the land is plentiful and disappear. If I went to Utah, you think I would not stand out like a sore thumb? They would see me in Utah. I'm not going there. You know what I mean? Not like I'm going to be a criminal and have to hide, but there are some places I'm not going to go because I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb. Right. And it's most places unless it's a major city.
Yeah. Okay. So there it is.
Black people can't hide in the country. You can hide in a major city, I guess, but not in the country.
Or the suburbs.
And depends on what suburb it is.
No, I'm saying you probably can't hide in the suburbs.
Oh yeah.
Suburbs are very suburbs tend to have stereotypical groups.
Right, unless there's 10 Black people there already.
Right.
And then you can get into the we all look alike part and then just kind of blend in with them. And I think we counted one more extra one now.
Right.
Yeah. There's no
scene in the movie that was very funny. I'll show you about that off air. Anyway, this is a great conversation, and I think we definitely answered my question, and hopefully it'll answer questions for our viewers who are wondering about privilege versus white privilege and whether or not that exists. If you have questions for us, feel free to email us at honestediscussions@gmail.com. We're happy to answer any questions. We'd love to have you as part of the show. So if you've got something you want us to discuss, and we're eventually going to get some people on here with us to talk. Anything else, Kimberly?
No, I think we did that one pretty well. Getting excited about next week's.
Yay. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a good week.